I think the first motivating factor, if you can call it that, was an incident that happened in 2006 in Baghdad. A moment when I watched this young man succumb to terrible burns on his body. And he was conscious at the time, and he was yelling for his father. Of all the deaths I saw, that one, for whatever reason, stood out the most. I think the second thing that became a motivating factor was seeing Nina Berman's amazing photograph of this Marine wedding of a burned soldier marrying his high school sweetheart, and it was a very simple picture, but one loaded with an incredible amount of tension. And it was one of the most powerful pictures I saw coming out of the war. So I think then that gave me another sort of thought, maybe there's a story along these lines that would be worth pursuing. A number of years had passed, and I kept going back to Iraq and Afghanistan, doing stories in the U.S., ones that kind of came up naturally. Rarely did I think, okay, I want to pursue something very specific and calculated and look for it. As I started finishing up all these other stories, I realized there's this one that had kind of lingered in the back of my head for a long time. I wanted to pursue it. And it was in watching a documentary called Samsara. And in one of the scenes, there's a slow panning shot of a soldier who's terribly burned in a graveyard. And I was very struck by it at the time, and waited till the end, and it mentioned his name. So I just kind of tucked it away, and then maybe 6 months later found the name on my phone and where I'd written it down, and Googled him and saw that he was this soldier who'd become a stand-up comedian. And usually I like something with, a kind of complex and contradictory factors intertwined in one. So I just sent him an email. So within a couple days of deciding that I should probably give this guy a call, I was down there in Texas. And from the first moment I met him, he was completely open with me. There were no barriers, no censorship, no suspicion, no wariness, just this completely open man, something you don't see too often, something you don't expect to see from someone with such devastating injuries. There was just a certain trust and intimacy that got established very quickly, and I could kind of be as present as I wanted to, and then when I needed to step back and take a picture, step back. So kind of mingling those two about being a part of things and being separate from things was the right way the relationship progressed. Well, you can see people reacting to him a little bit in the distance, but when they get closer, and he's so aware of this, of the tendency to stare, that he tends to try and be immediately disarming, and crack a joke or something like that, or engage with them in a way that doesn't create this kind of pregnant tension between him and this person. And as soon as as this person who's maybe nervous to see a guy with these disfiguring burns is kind of disarmed by his charm and humor, then quickly the interaction becomes pretty normal. When you see him, and you see him in this film, and you see him and talk to him in person, he doesn't dwell in a public way in any kind of self-pity about his injuries, but he's completely open about the fact that they caused great mental stress and distress, and continue to in some ways. But part of his personality is doing his damnedest to overcome it, and reinvent and recraft his identity as a result of it. There's no one lesson people learn when they're injured in war or they lose someone in war. Some people get more militant. Some people get completely detached. Some people want to strive for the pursuit of peace. Everyone maybe has suffered the same thing, but the reaction to it is what is so disparate. And I think that's what I find the most interesting, because one of the questions I think a lot of photographers and journalists process when they go through these, especially if they get very sort of obsessed like I did into conflict, and maybe a particular conflict, is you look at all these things as a way of trying to process and internalize and interpret keys to human nature, who we are as a species, the whole course of human history leading up to these particular moments, what the significance of it could be, if anything. And of course, and the lesson, unfortunately, I come to time and time again, is that there is no blanket interpretation that can be made. I mean, there's a reason these questions haven't been answered, and I'm not going to be the one to do it. But for whatever reason, I needed to at least explore it.